is Mike Baguetta, and I'm here with some sound advice from D'Addario. The thing I want to talk a little bit about with y'all today is something I've been working with over the last many years about using the whammy bar, a regular standard issue Strat style whammy bar, to do kind of, I guess, sort of fake pedal steel chord transpositions, although I kind of think of it as its own thing. The whammy bar is not just good for horse sound effects, although it is really good for those, but I feel like it's a very underused tool in the guitarist's toolbox. So this, like many musical elements, is kind of an endless thing you can get into, but hopefully I can give you a few tips to start scratching the surface and exploring these ideas for yourself. This is not an original idea, as most ideas I have are not. This was kind of very much inspired by hearing David Torn really perfect this kind of technique, and he is the one who showed me the things that got me started on this. So thank you to the very generous, legendary David Torn. So the first thing we need to understand is that this, my Cole Tornado, this is, a very nice guitar, but you can set this up on a regular Stratocaster style bridge. That's really all this is. It's like a 2-point Strat vibrato tailpiece. You can do it with a classic 6-screw, and believe it or not, I have my Les Paul with the Bigsby on it set up to do something pretty close to this as well. I find that with a Jazzmaster style tremolo, it's a little bit harder to get the extreme intervals of pull-ups. So on the G string, for instance, I have it set so that I can pull up a major fourth, so from G to C. Pretty much. And one thing you can do on a 2-point trem is, I don't know if it'll translate, but you can kind of dig out the body a little bit so that as you pull up, the bridge will actually drop down into the body as you pull up. That way you can keep the bridge sitting flat and you don't lose too much string tension. On a regular Strat without the dugout, you'll have to set up the screws so that it's kind of sitting at an angle so that you have enough range allowing you to do these wide style pull-ups. I believe stink bugging the bridge is the technical term. So one thing we want to think about also is playing in tune. If we're trying to do harmonic transpositions, that can be pretty important. So, some people say you can put a clip-on tuner up here, or you could have a plug-in tuner on the floor, and when you play your note, if you're playing a B flat and you want to go to a C, you don't really want to be dancing around the pitch. So you can look at the tuner as you play and say, oh yeah, that's C. You get the feel for what it feels like to have that amount of pull-up on each string for whatever interval you're trying to do. I find that helpful. One kind of maybe a little more fun way without being married to the tuner with your eyes is to actually play the note and then drop down to the note you want to pull up from. So if I want to play C from a B flat, I'll play the C, then I'll play the B and try to pull up till I hear the same note. And you can check it by letting go of the pull up and doing a hammer on. Whoa, sharp. Whoa, flat. And then just right, just like Goldilocks. Another important feature, not a bug, is that with a regular trem like this, each string, since it has different tension, pulls up at a different rate. So if I'm on the high E string and I'm playing a G, and I pull all the way up, I get an A. Okay? So on the high E string, I'm getting a major second. But on the G string, the third string, I'm getting a perfect fourth. B string, I get a minor third. I get a little bit more than a minor third. On the D string, fourth string, I get a minor third, a little bit more. On the A string, same thing. Not quite a major third, a little bit more than a minor third. And then on the low E string, I also get a perfect fourth. So we start to see groupings that kind of match. The B string, second string, I'm in standard tuning. B string, D string, and A string all move up at the same rate. So on these two, the perfect fourth, they'll move parallel. So you can get perfect fourths to move in parallel. The G and low E strings, the third and sixth strings, move parallel. And all these intervals, I'm talking about pull-ups, but they move for, they stay the same for pushing down also. So with these different groups, we see they move at different rates. That's really important to remember, because if I play not a single note, but rather if I play an interval, I have to keep track of how the interval moves with the relationship of the string rate. It sounds like we're getting into trigonometry and stuff, but we're not. It becomes a lot easier to sense this out the more that you practice these things. So one thing you can do is take an interval, like maybe a sixth, like if we want to be in like the key of A. Well, actually, let's take the key of G. If I want to play an A and an F sharp, and I want to move it to a G and a B, I can't keep the same fingering for that, because remember the D string and the B string, they move at the same rate. So if I pull up the F sharp to a G, the D is a B flat, because they're parallel movement. So if I want to get this, I have to mimic that shape as I pull up. So I'm making that minor sixth shape down here, because I want to keep the high E string as the pull up. I want to hear that, the slidiness of it, the pedal steeliness of it. So if I'm in the key of G, I want the G and the E to move to the A and the F sharp. I can keep that shape because a major sixth is a major sixth. If I want to play the minor sixth on top, I'll have to change the fingering. The tuning thing, while it's really important to practice your tuning, you know, I don't know, even Babe Ruth didn't bat 1,000. So having the tremolo kind of work as a vibrato system to kind of put some of that violin sound on the note can be really helpful with tuning. You know, that's why classical string players do that, you know, to kind of add a little bit to the fact that things are never really quite in tune. So if I play that again, you can put a little vibrato on it, very close to being really in tune. You can also do this with larger chords, like maybe triads, instead of just two notes. So if I take an A minor triad on the second, third, and fourth strings, right? A, C, E, from the bottom up. Thinking about the different rates that the strings move at, if I pull this up far enough, I'm going to end up with a C major triad up here. We can hear those intervals. So you can find chords that work together. A minor and C major, they're kind of the same key. They're really related. So that's a really useful one. And you can think about also voice leading too, maybe, if you really want to get into this. If I were to play a B and a C and pull it up to get a D and an E, so I can go up and down with the bar, but I can also walk that bottom note down. So I'm really trying to do some creative pull-offs. So hopefully that's something to investigate. Closing points and thoughts on this. This guitar has locking tuners, but not because of this tremolo use. I just like a fast string change. But what is really important is making sure that your nut is cut really cleanly so that the strings are flowing kind of out the back of the nut in the direction of the tuning peg. A straight pull to the tuning peg like a Strat or this one is really helpful. On a Les Paul style with 3 on a side like that, you just have to make sure the nut is kind of cut at an angle so that the string comes out of the nut at the angle that leads it up to the tuning peg. And also I take a little mechanical pencil and I color in the slots a couple of times a year just to get a little graphite in there. That helps kind of any pinging and anything getting stuck. Otherwise, this is a 2-point trem. I have 2 springs in the back like a V. That's just a balancing issue. I have done it with 3 on a Strat before. I've done it with 3 on this guitar before. I know people who have 3. You could do 2 straight. I just like a pretty loose feel, so I have 2. But otherwise, that's pretty much it. Just get a guitar that has a standard trem, or if you want a little bit more of a challenge, Gibson style with a Bigsby, it can be done, I promise. And start filling up a notebook with all these sort of really interesting transpositions, chordal harmonic transpositions. I have a couple of notebooks full of all this stuff from over the years of my own. But come up with your own. Find the sounds that are interesting to you, and then also work on it to make sure that they're sounding in tune, if that's your goal. And I look forward to hearing all of this stuff come out of you in the very near future. Thanks a lot to D'Addario for having me. You'll notice that with these wide pull-ups, my strings don't break. Thank you very much, D'Addario. I use a D'Addario XT 10-46, and I think in all the years I've been using D'Addario, I've only had a couple of strings break, and that's on me for never really changing them. Thanks to D'Addario for making a great string and for providing this opportunity to you.